Welcome to Healing Heart Journey. My name is Comfort Olaniran Dugbe. I'm your host on mental health matters. Today we want to talk about abuse, how we can detect the symptoms of abuse in our children, and how we can support them to eliminate or eradicate abuse in our homes, in our children. Firstly, I want us to understand what abuse is. What is abuse? Abuse is an action that is deliberately or intentionally done to injure or hurt someone. And abuse is something done to intentionally or deliberately done to injure or to harm someone. So, and it's also an inappropriate use of substance. It can be unwanted sex, it can be maltreatment, it can be abandonment and neglect. And when we are talking about abandonment and neglect, it is one of the most causes of um, abuse, sexual abuse in children. When you neglect them, it is just an absence of parental care. When their parents are not there for them, you know, it can cause abuse. And that is where we see it as one of the major causes of abuse in children. So I want us to talk about the types of abuse we have. We have many type of abuse, but I want to mention like 4 or 5 types today that are relevant to us that can help our mental health. Number one is physical abuse. Physical abuse. And when we're talking of physical abuse, we are talking of any form of physical harm to another person. Any form of physical harm to another person. It can be kicking, it can be slapping, it can be when you use a weapon, to harm somebody, punching, and you do this to inflict injury on them. When this kind of injury can be seen physically, we say it is physical abuse. And that is why in most cases of domestic violence, you see this physical abuse so much as a symptom or a way of knowing that this person has been abused domestically. So when you see a part of the face black, when you see some of part of the body swollen and all that, that person has been abused physically. I remember a case sometimes back when a woman was abused by the husband. The husband was just coming from office, and you know I don't know the reason. I don't know the reason that could make somebody behave that way. The man used a very hot iron on the wife. He just put the iron on the neck of the poor woman, and you can imagine the kind of sore, injury it caused on that woman. So physical abuse is not a good thing at all. It is a symptom of real mental problem, real mental illness in somebody. And we also have verbal abuse. Verbal abuse is the use of words like weapon to slowly kill someone emotionally. You just use derogatory words on your victim. You just want to pull them down, and you use this word on them. Words like you are a failure, nothing good can come out of you, you can never do well. All those words are verbal abuse that we use on people to bring them down emotionally, and it affects mental health so much. It can get to a stage where this will affect them emotionally, and it can lead to depression and insanity. So use of a derogatory word to kill people is also not good. It's a form of abuse that we need to move away from. Another one is what we call emotional and psychological abuse. That one is comes to people to lose their sanity, as I've explained earlier. When you use derogatory word or anything or physical abuse, when you continually abuse people, it will definitely lead to a point that it will help them. It's either it causes physical sickness on them, or it causes emotional sickness on them. And so that is what we refer to as emotional or psychological abuse. Now, we have what we have called financial and economic abuse. Financial and economic abuse is when a person withhold the needed money, the needed or required care. When you deprive people of such, then you say you have abused that person economically. When you need to give probably money to somebody, or you deliberately will withhold somebody's money, you know it's a source of income for that particular person, and you deprive that such individual. It's a form of abuse, and we call it economical or financial abuse. Now when we talk about elderly abuse, in other hand is when you deprive them of care or neglect. I love these elderly people, and I think that we abuse them mostly, especially this part of the world where we don't even give care, much care to our elderly. Sometimes we neglect them, sometimes we deprive them of their past memory. For example, our friends are coming and we ask our mothers or our parents, any of our parents, to go inside. Mama, you can go inside, my friends are coming. Those words are killing, can kill them emotionally. It is not as if because they are grown or they are elderly, they no longer have life or they no longer have memory. They too have gone through what you are going through. What you call fun today, they too have gone through it before. As they grow, should be able to enjoy some part, some form of fun too. So don't deprive them. When you deprive them of this kind of lifestyle, then you are we say you are abusing them. You are abusing them, and we call that elderly abuse. When you are going to the beach and you are telling mama, your food is in the warmer on the dining, what stops you from taking them along? All these are elderly abuse. You are depriving them of what you know can make them happy. And one of the things we do, I think I did this before. When your parent comes around and your friend too comes around and serve them and give them money as they are going, immediately you just go to them and ask them, mama, bring that money, what do you need money for? Counting the money, may I shock you that counting that money can give them good memory, it can help them in anywhere. So care, when you deprive them care as an elderly, then you are abusing them. I want us to talk and emphasize on sexual abuse. Forcing people to go into sexual acts against their will without their consent, that is sexual abuse. Or anything from unwanted touch is sexual. So sexual intercourse is what we call sexual abuse. When you touch any children, you touch anyone, without their consent, you are just touching them. You are from touching, to whatever you do to sexual intercourse. It is what we call against their will, without their consent. It's called sexual abuse, and this involves unwanted kissing, touching, rough and violent sexual activity. So when you do this, we call it sexual abuse. And when we look at this sexual abuse, it is often perpetrated against the female gender, though men are sometimes victims, but majorly it is being perpetrated um, against women, against women. Now, I want to ask a very vital question: who are the abusers? Who are the abusers? Now we have spoken about what abuse is, types of abuse. Now, who are the abusers? May I shock you that this set of people are not far-fetched. They could be our family members, that is our friends, cousins, uncles, fathers, and so on and so forth. These people are not people that you can, they are not far-fetched. They are around us, our neighbors, our domestic staff, probably our drivers, megad, or what do we call them? So they are not far-fetched at all, and that's why we need to be very sensitive and be at alert and be around our children. Let's have a very good plan for these children. Fine, we are working for them, you are making money for them, but what are your plans to secure them? Their security is very paramount, so that they will not be vulnerable to these dangers outside, especially abuse. So please, abusers are not far-fetched, and that is why we need to build a gate, a very tall gate around our homes and around our children, that we call security. We will still get there. 90% of sexual abusers are pre-planned. Just 10% or even less than 10%. And just suddenly, it just happens suddenly. Probably armed robbers enter someone's house and they just find that okay, they could rape this person or they could abuse them. but you see that 90% of you know abuse, of especially sexual abuse, are planned work. They have planned it. They have seen that such individual is vulnerable. Probably they have been seeing children that their parents are not always around, so they plan. Their mind, they have planned. They plan, and they perpetrate this evil. So 90%, I have said earlier, of sexual abuses are pre-planned and do not occur by accident. The planning, they plan it, and we call it grooming. The act of grooming is the act of you know plan on how to abuse someone, especially abuse sexual abuse. Now let's go to signs of trauma, or signs of if a child has been abused. I'm going to list out some of these things that you can see in the children that will tell you that such individual has been abused in any form. There will be behavioral change. The behavior of that particular child will definitely change. If suddenly you find out that a lively child, a child that is always up and doing, suddenly have a change of character, and suddenly become quiet, then probably something has happened to that child. And when you see that they withdraw from friends, withdraw from unusual activities, things that they have been doing passionately before, they suddenly withdraw from such, and always want you to be alone. Those are the signs of behavioral changes that you could see in children that has been one way or the other been abused. The abuse might not be only physical abuse, might not be sexual abuse, but might have been abused in any form. When they are emotionally distressed, they are down emotionally, they are reacting to touch, they are reacting to everything, everybody around them, they are hostile, they are so aggressive. Their anger, you cannot even pin down. You suddenly behave like they are just behaving, their behavior is too hostile. Then you know that something is wrong. If they have not been behaving like that before, and you suddenly see these changes in them, then you know that something has really happened to these children, and we need to address this fact. Another thing is when they have sleep disturbance, they no longer sleep well, they no longer, they have insomnia, then you know that something has happened to them. Then sometimes when you see that they react to touch, especially opposite sex, they react to that touch. Everybody just like touch you, like scream, or a kind of reaction. That is why parents must be very, very sensitive to their children, to their words, to people around them. When you see them behaving like this, some of them will just have mood swings. They will see somebody and they have been laughing before. The person will come in and they will suddenly, switch from being happy to being sad. Then you know that something has happened to these children, and they need quick attention. When they decline academically, that is, they have poor performance, they begin to have poor performance in school, then you know that something is happening to them. Even a normal parent will know that a child has been doing well academically, and all of a sudden, goes down, the performance goes down, then you should question it. You should do everything possible to make sure that you know what is the cause of that, decline in academic. Then physical symptoms. When you see physical symptoms, some of our parents, we don't even look at our children very well. We don't look at them deep. Sometimes they go. I heard of a particular parent that for some time she has not been bathing for the particular daughter. So one day probably she found out that the person bathing for her will always see that anytime she's touching the vagina, washing the part of the private part, the girl will do a kind of, will move a kind of, you know moving the body to show that that place is paining her. And this thing kept on until they have told the mother, and by the time they know that somebody has started abusing her. So that is how we have to be very sensitive to physical change in our children. Then when you see that these children are withdrawing socially, a particular child has love footballing, love to play football, and all of a sudden he is no longer playing it, then something has happened. Change in countenance, lack of concentration, avoidance of certain situation, then frequent absence from school. If you are a teacher and you see that your child, your pupil is no longer coming to school regularly, there's nothing wrong in you interrogating, interfere in such case by going to the home and ask what has happened to that particular child. And all these things can lead to depression. All this can lead to depression. Then when this leads to depression, you know what it means. All this will affect the mental health of that individual, and it will cause trauma. And when it gets when anyone is being abused, definitely that person is traumatized. And when you are traumatized, you know what happens. The social well-being of that individual will change. the physical the physical well-being of that individual will change. That is, the person can be sick physically, the relationship will be affected, and it is not good for us as individuals, because our mental health affect our emotion, our social well-being, our physical well-being, and everything pertaining to us. When our brain is not working well, our body cannot work well. And so children also have feelings. One mistake I will make as parents is that we don't know that our children too have feelings. They have emotion too. They have mental health too. If it's not good, if they have mental health crisis or disorder, it will also affect them. So all these things are symptoms. When you see 2, 3 or 4 of these symptoms in any child, please do something immediately to help them. Their mental health has been affected and they need to be addressed